Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. This is Lifestyle Critic, where we break down movies and TV shows into their core elements. And in this video we are going to be reviewing the long-awaited second season of A Discovery of Witches, which takes the two main lead characters, namely Diana Bishop and Matthew de Clairmont, back to Elizabethan London, where they are looking for the Book of Life, where Diana is trying to train up her magical powers and where Matthew de Clairmont also has to confront his past self as well. There are plenty of new characters here, loads of new relationships, loads of new views to contend with, and we also get to see what's happening in the present with the characters without Diana and without Matthew as well. So loads to unpack here, so let's get on with the review for A Discovery of Witches Season 2. So from a storyline point of view, very similarly to Season 1, it does take a few episodes for things to really get going, but when they do get going, it is totally exhilarating and unmissable. And I really like the fact that they were simultaneously telling stories from both the past and the present. So you could simultaneously see what's happening in the present and in the past across the whole season. Granted, there was a lot more of a focus on the past, but it was really nice to also see what's happening in the present without Diana and without Matthew. So let's first look at the past. So after the cliffhanger of the first season, with Diana suddenly seeing Satu coming into her aunt's place, they successfully travel to the past into the Elizabethan era. Now this isn't exactly where they wanted to go, but either way they're in the past and they are on a mission to look for the Book of Life. Diana is also learning more about her magical powers and is part of a new coven that is training her up in her magical arts. Matthew Clairmont has returned to a time where he is actually known as Matthew Roydon, who is a bit of an undercover spy character that has really backdated views and does a lot of questionable things, and his friends are really jealous of the Diana character, and some of his friends want to remove the Diana character altogether. I really like the family related episodes that the two lead characters go on. So for example, the Matthew de Clairmont character meets his father, Philippe de Clairmont, and that arc between the two of those characters, and Diana as well actually, is absolutely brilliant. I won't spoil what happens with Diana when she meets a character from her family past, but that's really interesting as well. And then all of the quests that they go on in Elizabethan London to try and find the Book of Life is absolutely brilliant. Meanwhile, in the present day timeline, we still have all of the treachery, betrayal and power struggle still continuing from the first season, and the older generation characters with all of their century-old views and how this conflicts with the new modern generation way of thinking, which I thought was a really interesting storyline arc. Marcus becomes a bit of a main character in the present day timeline, with entrusting the secret that he's a vampire with a human being, which would be really interesting to see how that continues next season. And also we get to see the Sophie and Nathaniel baby being born. A little bit of conflict and a little bit of drama towards the end of this season, but again, I'm sure that's one that will continue next season. We also have one of Diana Bishop's aunts trying to talk to the dead and using very high level magic, which had disastrous consequences at the end of this season. And then finally we have the power of the night and who is going to control this, as loads of different vampire characters want to be able to take this power. So from a storyline point of view, loads packed into season 2, and it was just absolutely really enjoyable from start to finish, and I cannot wait to see how it's all going to be concluded next season. So from a casting characters point of view, like I said before, there are loads of new characters in this season. Pretty much everyone came back from the first season, which is great, but because they've gone to a new timeline, there are loads of new characters in the past of Elizabethan London on top of all of the existing characters from the first season. So jam-packed from a character's point of view. So let's go through them one by one. So first up we have Teresa Palmer returning as Diana Bishop, and she is really learning how to become a super witch this season and does a brilliant job in leading the show, and she is very convincing whenever she talks to new characters, as she really is able to use her words to get her way, which is absolutely brilliant. She's also really helping the Matthew de Clairmont character this season, as he is really conflicted as he's dealing with his darkness from 500 years ago, which obviously he's matured and developed a lot as a character, and now he's had to regress and go back to his old dark place. So the Diana Bishop character really helps him with this, and it's really nice actually, as in the first season it was a lot of Matthew helping Diana, whereas this time they're a lot more equal and Diana's really helping Matthew, and as a team they work really well together, which is absolutely brilliant. We then have Matthew Goode, who plays both the Matthew de Clairmont and the Matthew Roydon character this season. And like I said, it's really interesting to see where this character used to be 500 years ago and the world that he had, the views that he had, and seeing how he's developed since then, but really interestingly, what it's like for this character to go back into the past to get really triggered by certain characters and how he's going to handle himself was really, really interesting. We then have Edward Bluemel, who is a bit of a main character in the present day timeline as the Marcus character, as you find out a lot more about his past, and he also has a bit of a relationship with a human character, and at least in season 1 humans are kind of in the background, whereas in this season this character is really introduced into the world of the creatures and seeing how that is going to be navigated. So that was really interesting. And you also got to explore what happens when Marcus learns about the disease of the de Clairmont family and the blood rage. So that was all really, really interesting for the Marcus character. We then have James Purefoy, who plays the Philippe de Clairmont character, the father of Matthew de Clairmont. And like I said before, this is a really interesting relationship arc, and you got to see a really different side of the Matthew character, and their relationship from a vampire point of view is absolutely fantastic. We then have Lindsay Duncan, who returns as Matthew's mother. Obviously Matthew's in the past, it's really interesting to see more from this character's point of view without the Matthew character there, but needless to say, she just has such presence in every single scene she's in, such a scene stealer and absolutely brilliant in this show. We then have Owen Teale, who returns as the Peter Knox character, the head of the witches, who uses a lot of dark magic to be able to control everyone. We then have Trevor, who is a bit of a partner in crime to the Peter Knox character, but this time from the vampire point of view. And then speaking of vampires, we also have Baldwin, who returns as well, and he wants to control the knights, so wants to take this from the Marcus character. We also have Domenico, who returns as well, and he is just as slimy as he was in the first season. He is trying to get more and more power so that he can climb up the ranks within the vampire world. We also have Louisa, who is Matthew's sister, a very different type of character to the Matthew character, so it's really interesting to see their dynamic. We then have Kit Marlowe, who is based on a real character, and he's a bit of an untrustworthy friend to the Matthew de Clairmont character because he's a really great friend to the Matthew Roydon character. We also have Paul Riley, who plays Andrew Hubbard, who's a bit of a vampire character that protects the vampires in the particular vicinity that they are based in. So from a casting characters point of view, loads of characters in the second season, and it's really interesting to see all of the different dynamics and all the different conflicts between all of these brilliant characters. So from a visuals point of view, A Discovery of Witches never disappoints, as it looks absolutely incredible, and this season is definitely no different. Travelling back to the 1590s looks absolutely amazing, and if you watch the behind the scenes videos, you can see that they put loads of effort and work into creating these amazing set designs, as it looks so realistic, and you really do feel like you've been transported back to the 1590s, so that looks absolutely incredible. All of the magical scenes again look really realistic and amazing as well. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of the magical side of the show, but that being said, all of the magical scenes that you do see are absolutely incredible. All of the fight scenes are really, really great as well, very Game of Thrones-esque. And another thing that this show does really, really well is all of the travelling scenes. So you get to go back to Venice, which looks great. You see loads of different castles in France, and all of the scenes look absolutely impeccable. So from a visuals point of view, this show is absolutely awesome. So from a comparisons point of view, you know, there are quite a lot of other TV shows and movies that deal with the topic of magic, witches, warlocks, vampires, demons, etc. But I definitely feel like A Discovery of Witches definitely does it in the most sophisticated and classiest way. And like I said before, you know, you can also compare this show to Game of Thrones as well, in terms of there being loads of different fractions and groups and power struggles and all the different fight sequences, especially back in the 1590s as well. You can also compare this show to Charmed from a magic and witches point of view. I feel like Charmed definitely has its own aesthetic and its own style, but at least from a witches point of view, you could definitely compare the two. And from a season by season comparison, you know, I did really enjoy season 1 and season 2. Both seasons definitely have a bit of setup in the first few episodes where they're introducing you to the world, which is really, really great. But once things get going, they are totally unstoppable. And because season 2, because you've been already introduced to some of the aspects from the first season, and it has both past and present, I do feel like season 2 has a slight edge on season 1. But needless to say, this is such a brilliant show that you have to check out if you haven't seen it already. So the second season of A Discovery of Witches definitely ended with loads of brilliant cliffhangers, and I cannot wait to see how they're going to conclude all of it in the third season. So here are my predictions of what could happen in the third season. So obviously we're going to have the return of Diana and Matthew back into the present day timeline, and I think they're going to be able to find the Book of Life in the present day timeline. I think ultimately it's going to go into the hands of the evil people, but then ultimately I think it's going to go back into Diana and Matthew's hands, and they're going to be able to change things forever, which would be great. I think there's going to be a lot more power struggles and a lot more betrayal, especially at the leadership point of view, for sure. I feel like Diana's going to be using her level 10 magical powers and do loads of epic stuff in the 3rd season as well. I feel like the blood rage, that did not get concluded in the 2nd season, and I feel like that's going to be linked to when Diana gave her blood to Andrew the vampire at the end of the 2nd season. So I feel like that storyline is going to cause a lot of chaos, but ultimately it is going to get resolved as well. I think there's going to be some shocking deaths in this season as well, and I think there's going to finally be some peace between all of the different creatures. I feel like this was a really interesting thread that they had in the 2nd season in terms of really having unity and peace between all of the different characters from a younger generation point of view, and I feel like this is going to be educated to the older generation. It'll be really interesting to see whether or not the older generation will be able to get behind this, but either way, I cannot wait to see what's going to happen in the 3rd season, as they have definitely set all of the dominoes up for a totally ultimate 3rd season, which is going to be absolutely epic. So overall, I'm sure you can tell I absolutely love the 2nd season of A Discovery of Witches. I love being taken back into this world, having everyone returning, introducing new characters, pushing everything from a storyline point of view even further, taking all the magic to the next level, having great fight sequences, and really introducing brand new themes, which I think is really going to lend itself well in the 3rd season. But as far as the 2nd season goes, I have to give it a solid 7 out of 10 because I absolutely loved it from start to finish. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.